Good morning, folks. And we have an interesting subject for you today. The title is, where we find it, a memorial, the Fanny Coker Reparations. And to take us through that, we have two friends today, Dan Tagg and Ros Martin. So it is over to you, friends.
Good morning. Dan is actually going to be doing the technical support of a presentation slide that I put together. And it's Fananya, which is an Igbo word, which means you are cherished. And what it is essentially a culmination of work I undertake as an artist practitioner, bringing people together across generations to be moved, hopefully, to understand, to reflect, and to heal. It sits in the ecology of Bristol as, are we recording? Because I can't see the recording button.
Yes,
Oh,
we
it
are.
is, sorry. Ecology of Bristol, um, which passed a motion to consider reparations. And it's something as I kind of feel very, very passionately about. Um, it's also supported by the Legacy Commission and Black Southwest Network, which is an organisation into racial equality, address and development for the Southwest region. The next slide. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about myself, memorialization, what it means for me as a practicing artist and many years. And in fact, it's merging two projects, which is Raising the Red. Some of you might have seen the red dresses kind of in the fish ponds area, um, representing women and girls killed and missing through violence. And Fanny Coker and her story through an earlier project called Daughters of Igbo Women. I'll talk a bit about the seed money and how that's being spent in relation to seeding the project and a vision with Black Southwest Network for a larger project. Probably about 30 minutes, hopefully, if I don't get too way late, and then we'll have time for questions. Okay, next. I'm an artist and writer of African heritage. I describe myself as a global citizen. I hope we all do. And kind of with parents hailing from Nigeria, Barbados, St. Lucia, with family everywhere actually. Angola, Nigeria, Trinidad, Barbados. Um, yeah, I'm a culture archivist, although people often say I'm an activist for the nature of the work I've been doing in Bristol. I'm not originally from Bristol, although obviously I've lived here now for 30 years. As a producer, my practice is collaborative, socially engaged, and inclusive. You can see a lot of my work on a website, holowalearts.org.uk. In a former life, I was a practicing social worker, a practice teacher, specialising in adoption and fostering training for Bristol City Council and bringing prospective adopters and foster carers to panel, as well as supporting them. I also worked quite extensively in the voluntary sector in London before coming to Bristol in community development, women's health development, African Caribbean emotional health and well-being, and elders empowerment across inner city, North London, Haringey, Islington, Hackney. It's surprising how much it's changed from the early 80s when I was around. I worked for the London Women's Therapy Centre. I worked on a national project with the Health Education Authority on women's health, sexual health, and assertiveness with a backdrop of a lot of funding to raise awareness and combat HIV and AIDS back in the 80s, throughout the 80s. Next slide. Next slide. Sorry. I'm actually going to start with a poem, and I'd recently come back from St. Lucia in Barbados, and I came across this poem on a stone, and Camus Brathwaite, some of you, is quite an important Caribbean poet, and really it was in a square of remembrance of people who built Barbados. It was interesting. There was a whole wall with bricks, and there was the family
Oh,
kind of name Phillips in there. It is not enough to be pause, to be whole, to be void, to be silent, to be semicolon, to be semi-colony. Fling me the stone that will confound the void. Find me the rage, and I will raise the colony. Fill me with words, and I will blind your God. I was a little bit hesitant about including, next slide, the last bit of the poem, but I kind of feel, for me, the anger which you kind of often see in young black men, I sometimes carry it, but translate it in creativity, which is where I probably feel most at peace, submerged in a project writing. The vision for the Fanny Coker Memorial, she's also known as Fanny, is a quote by Toni Morrison about yearning for a place that to actually remember African ancestors. There is no place, and it's creating that place. It's a beautiful, stunning cemetery for those of you who've been there. It's obviously a lot wilder than it looks because the team that used to keep it are no longer there. And next slide. Moving on, that is the vision of a waymarker, an artist commission waymarker, a a seat of reflection um, in whatever material. It will be something sturdy, so it could be metal or stone. And also the waymarker would be separation of distance, of separation of Fanny from her mother and grandmother. Just a little bit about her, if people aren't familiar with her story. She was a 18th century African woman that was the maidservant of a Georgian house in Bristol. And when I first discovered her, I remember one of my boys really kind of saying, I don't get it. She didn't do anything. She was just a maidservant. And I think for me, it's a little people. It's an expression my mother used to use of the world who need upholding so we can see what's actually happening to them. And those lives that are often kind of circumvented, by circumstances, control, abuse. And I think when we're looking at 18th century Bristol and the 500,000 people that were transported, this is one woman. There's very little that recognizes women in slavery, and her final remains are in Greenbank Cemetery. Um, so it's really, in a nutshell, age 12, her mother was kidnapped from a village, assumed by African headhunters, um, transported, survived the horrendous Middle Passage, finds herself on an auction block with Perro, you might know from Perro Bridge, and his two younger sisters, Nancy and I'm trying to think what the other one's name is. It forgets me for now. So they're really a batch of children by Mr. Pinney of the Georgian House, a plantation over in Mount Travers in Nevis. And age 11, we're told she's free, but she never actually leaves the people who frees her, so you have to question what freedom is. And age 15, alongside Pero, an uncle-like figure, I would imagine, she's in UK and then settles as a maidservant at Mrs. Pinney in a Georgian house. And the values I'm kind of using really is that my preoccupation is from a quote with Audre Lorde. I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different to my own. And another one for another poet, Gwendolyn Brooks, which I do use on my website and does inspire me and the work I do. And I think kind of speaks to Quaker faith as well, is that we have to be each other's harvest business, to be each other's magnitude and bond. We're the sum total of who we are. And that's also part of Ubuntu from an African perspective. Um, and that's really, I am what I am because who we are. Our interrelatedness, really. I think also her story is also about survival, solidarity, and adaptation. And what we're trying to do with the project is to bring those values with whoever we're working with. And I'm seeking support in the work I do as a creative art practitioner in Bristol for over 20 years. And my work is not just sits in Bristol, it sits in a much bigger connection and narrative of our common humanity. Next slide. Who is she? Dan's going to put a link in the chat so you can see this is the preview of a 30 minutes film that's found online. If you've been to the Reparations, just an early event, it would have been shown. It's freely available, but you get a sense of it.
Hopefully I'll manage to just play it to you all. We'll see.
My mother had told me that a day would come when my womb would flower, and when the blood of life flows from me, I would become nectar. Our future was pinned on distant planets. No looking glass could see that far into that distance. Who truly knows what horrors one will endure, the depravity that one will allow in order to survive? Sugar, when its bitterness scars the land with broken dreams that has turned broken bodies, the men of the world, broken minds to madness.
Thank you. Can stop it here. Next slide. I think it shows it's a film that's been made up by three people. A very eminent writer, professor of English, she's retired now, in Nigeria, Akachi Xibo, and whom I really, and Vida Rawlings in St. Kitts and Nevis. Vida I did know from Bristol, who kind of left Bristol to return to the Caribbean. There are some of us who kind of returned home or gone back home, my sister included, who's kind of married last year and settled in Barbados. And what it has done is made a memory of each of the three generations. So Fanny Coker herself, her mother, a Daisy, and grandmother Uji, trying to think, Uji Ugo in Nigeria. So Akachi took the grandmother and using archives that the University of Bristol have online, kind of create a voice for her in the landscape where events happened. I did the Bristol one of Fanny in Greenback Cemetery, where her remains are buried. And Viola Rawlings, who's a filmmaker and writer, did a Daisy's voice in Nevis. And the film's freely available online. If you haven't seen it, I will recommend it really. And it's a source that will use all aspects of it to engage people with the past and the present. For me, it's the legacy of colonization and chattel slavery. And the afterlife is the violence in our midst that's so normalized. If we can see it in relationships that have power and control, we can see it in ways if we're not aware of it ourselves, you know, for whatever reason. So it's really exploring what this violence is and how do we stop people in their tracks to actually acknowledge it, think about it, and hopefully do something. There is an annual memorial event, and Quaker Friends, Julia and Rosemary Ventre, have come along and supported, and Marion as well, I see. From an event that took place in 2017, the Arts Council and the University, not University of Bristol, the Culture Museum Service enabled the films to be made, and they were kind of made for the Georgian House in 3 rooms for 4 days. About 800 people came, from all over the place. Some people came from outside the city to see the films. They are harrowing, but in a way, I think we need to sit and be with what it is it brings up in us to begin a process of healing, but also a sense of and coming together, symptomatically bringing together that which has been broken. So that's what it does with the African continent, the Caribbean continent, and Bristol. Yeah. So next slide. That's Sean Sobers, Professor Sean Sobers of UWI. And that's last year as well. So around 2:30 on the 26th of August, there is an annual gathering which will continue. And part of the vision is to have something big there once the memorials is up, and to continue that. As you can see, it's an important to have places of remembrance. And when I was in Barbados, it's important to visit some of the landscapes of burial ground, which you'll see at the end of the film, the slide presentation, and give acknowledgement, honor, pause, and reflect. Everything I do is in memory of African ancestors, and I think they're all our ancestors. I also feel with the killed and missing that disproportionately affect Indigenous and Black ethnic minority kind of women, the othered. They're all our concern. And yeah, so it's a kind of way of making people stop thinking and having those discussions. Next slide. The seed money went to pilot workshops in schools, May Park. That pilot's not actually going to take place till the autumn. But because with the red dress crafters, which we'll come on to, which are the red dress that hung to remember women and girls killed and missing through violence, it suddenly occurred to me this is the way how we make the link. The idea originally came from an Indigenous woman in Canada. I saw her work online and just felt very moved. It's often other artists' work or music or whatever that moves and kind of gets ideas going as a creative practitioner. I did approach her and said, this is amazing. I'd like to honour those women, those Indigenous women in Canada. She didn't reply on the May the 5th. So a small group of us came together. Another thing I do is actually chalk. And it was a random group for International Women's Day. That's one of the chalking days, as well as the 1st of August for Emancipation Day. In the centre, and you kind of engage with people passing by and speak to them and get them to express thoughts. I like the randomness of just meeting strangers and having that connection. And sometimes it can be very, very brief, or amazingly, sometimes I remember after the toppling of the Colston statue, and I went to chalk on May the 1st. And usually, when I'm kind of explaining to people what it's about, they would be swift foot and get away quite quickly or drop a comment. Okay, I feel so guilty. And I'll try and say, well, tell me more about this guilt, to explore it. It's an opportunity to explore where people are. But that year, everyone's running towards us. You know, they had something to say and wanted something to say. There were two 12-year-old girls that were cousins, and they sat down to chalk. And the chalking's normally for an hour, but they couldn't stop. So I honoured and stayed with them for the hour and a half. And chalking quotes, expressions, feelings, what they'd done in school around the toppling and what it meant. Yeah, so it's very powerful, people coming in. We do have a lot of visitors in the city centre, so it's a good location. And people coming in, often from abroad, do engage, really. So with the older students, I contacted the Met School because it was where we had the 16 days of action, the UN, end violence against women and girls. And with this small group, I did say it'll be nice to make it bigger and include all women and girls killed and missing through violence, past and present. We do collect databases, and it was important for me to actually do a dress for Fanny Coker's mother, Daisy. And it's got a quote on it. So really, the teacher who we spoke to, we're kind of working with a teacher practitioner who's on trying to think maternity leave, in drawing up the resources, but really kind of getting students to think critically within. I have done a lot of work in the past in this area, so it's not new, but everything is specific to the group of children and developing their own global citizenship awareness. So through critical thinking, through working in small groups, peer work, and making it age specific. With the younger ones, we're looking about memories. If you're having to travel or leave your country, because obviously in inner city schools, we do have children, who've migrated from war. A project I was doing, and I kind of wanted to bring a parent in to talk about migration. And one of the students says, I'll do it. And her peers who were in the group, it was a 12-week course that we were doing on the Bristol bus boycotts. And, they were in shock. There was someone, they were going to school every day with this extraordinary story that she was bold and brave to share amongst the peers. So there's always magic that takes place when you bring people together and what people share and choose to share. And that's same for the hub that we have around a craft hub at Crafted by Props in the Straits. It's a small group of us of probably there's about 14 of us, but probably about 4 or 5 meet regularly doing the crafting really. So with the older students, I'm also looking at issues around safety, relationships, power and control in personal relationships. And we'll be looking at Montpellier High School, mainly because I've worked with them in the past, and always having inroads into school helps really. The seed money is also supporting a sculpture commission for a maquette. A maquette is a scale version of what it's going to be, and it's be the seating area, the signposting marker of distance of Uga, which is a village in relation to the film, the Three-Boat Woman, the Mount Travers plantation, where the Pinnies had 900 enslaved Africans. If you're not been to the Georgian house, in the top room there is a list of all the names of the enslaved Africans, and I suggest that people spend some time there. And with that, you see the dignity, the lack of dignity in the names they're being accorded. They're not their names. We're also looking at funding for a larger project, which I'll talk a little bit about. Next slide. So that was the 25th to the 10th of December, and the installation that went up in Fishponds
We seem
Park.
to have lost the slides.
The slides have gone.
Oh, they're gone.
No, I think you've lost the slides, Marion, not anybody else at the moment.
Okay.
That's strange.
Yeah. Is there anything we could do with that, Dan?
I could come out and come back in again?
Yes, do that. That's a good suggestion. So, should we wait for Marion?
I'll keep going.
So it's a flat. This was Fishponds Park, which is near the Straits, and next door is a churchyard, and it's a guerrilla intervention. People kept saying, "We need permission, Ros." I said it's a guerrilla. It needs to have that impact that people just come across and respond, and it's not going to happen. But anyway, for those that were more intrepid, I said, okay, I'll contact the local ward councillor. And he did come along to the launch and was very, very moved. And trying to think what else. There was a cemetery next door, and I was looking at the trees and I thought that's where it needs to be. And the installation was supposed to go up the day before, so I banged on the door. And the vicar said, we're doing this. I said, we're doing this installation. Is it okay for it to extend into your graveyard? He goes, yes, I don't see why not. Contact this person. I'm going to see them in an hour, so I'll mention it. So I rang them there and then we got the permission, which was brilliant because, not everyone necessarily welcomed the installation, but I would say overwhelmingly it was very well received. I'm just going to read a quote. We did have a book as well in Crafted by Props. It is a cafe that kind of, for adults with learning difficulties, provides training. If you've not been there, do go along, support it. They've been amazing. They provided a place for us to craft on a regular basis. And we had a comments book there. They've done some publicity as well. I've been so moved by the Red Dress Project, stumbling across the works in my neighbourhood. I live, come back to spend more time. It particularly impacted me in the churchyard. Lives and memories floating in time. I was struck by the way that the single convention together draws so many lives and participants together with so many crimes, so pervasive, horribly upsetting, and galvanizing through solidarity at the same time. Solidarity at the same time. The work impacts me in all the ways it should, I think, but also draws me closer to fish ponds as a place. And I hope that more on street, in the corners, artwork materializes and surprises here. Really well done. Amazed dog walker, sorry, husband and dad. And this Liz, thank you to everyone who took part in this Red Dress project. Seems very respectful of all those women and girls to be remembered in this way. The girls' dresses were heartbreakingly poignant. Thank you for highlighting this important issue so graphically, etc., etc. Next slide. This is May the 5th. That's Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people. It's an expression they kind of use to people kind of both sexes or transitioning, missing and murdered in Canada. And this went up on the 5th of a couple of weeks ago. And we changed the location to Fish Ponds Park. Yeah, we kind of play it so you can see it. This is it going up. I have to say, two strangers come by, a young couple, kind of just spent an hour with the installations. It's the way people engage when they see the red, they just kind of are drawn. Anyway, so a little clip of the dresses and the trees. It's a problem playing, Dan. You you need to
You're
unmute
mute.
yourself.
You're mute, Stan.
You're mute. You're muted, Dan.
Okay, I'm trying. Just give me. I thought I'd done it there.
Should we leave? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's just very.
Is that playing now?
Yeah, it should do because that's the film clip.
Can I just say, is that Vassals Park? Oldbury
Yes.
Court?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Fishponds Park, thanks.
No, the original one, the 16 days. This was the in solidarity with Canadian Sisters, Indigenous Women Red Dress Day, at Vassals Park. Yeah. Oh, very cool. And the idea is to move it around the city in different locations. Okay, we can stop it now, so I think it's on a loop. Next slide.
Give me a moment to get all my screens back.
Cheers to that.
Okay.
These are a bit more detail, and this is how, similar on a slideshow with the young people, they were just given a slideshow to go around the dresses and tasks to do. So next slide. Why do you think red is chosen as a colour? The feelings and things you associate with the colour red, and to choose three and spend some time in small groups talking. Next slide. These are tasks for Key Stage 3. This is a primary source evidence which shows the sale purchase of Black Polly, Fanny Coker's mother, and Pero. Probably can't see, it's very blur, but it's got two crosses on the side. And this is the dress I made for a Daisy age 12, which is Fanny Coker's mother. And it's got some writing on it, which is a quote from the film. When the blood flows, next slide, the men will follow. And they're asked to discuss what they think it means and looking at some of the things on the dress, the cowrie shells and what they mean. Yeah. So next slide. Yeah, the task really is to come up with something creative in small groups, really. So at the end of the session, that's what they will be doing. Yeah, so it can be from writing a letter. That letter activity we have worked before in relation to Scipio Africanus, and that's quite effective as well. So you can do it in small groups or separately. We would provide all the materials. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. These are some metal tags that Tim kindly fashioned for a younger age group, which will enable them to come up with words at the end of a workshop that will hang in the space of Greenbank Cemetery. Because the idea that the school work produces temporary installations that move and adapt alongside a permanent. Next slide. And the wider project is creating hubs, craft hubs. I hope Quakers who do craft will kind of feel able to. I think people need to feel comfortable. Some people say, oh, the subject's too heavy, or I've had enough, and that's fine, they can leave. Some people kind of work quite separately on their own and then handed a dress. There was a reach out for dresses. And I remember a man, he was 70, that came in and said, my mother wanted me to give you this dress. They're secondhand red dresses that we work from, of all sizes and ages, so from very young, because some of the people that we're remembering are young girls as well. Yes, so what we would do, we'd actually have a South Bristol. There's a request to have a South Bristol craft hub. There's been trusted from a display that took place for International Women's Day on the council house. I don't know if anyone went to that. The dresses were displayed there. Latinos in Bristol expressed interest in creating their own hub. And I think Suda Fest as well, which is Sudanese community. The South Bristol Craft Hub will be work with Bristol Women's Voice, who are responsible for the International Women's Day event at the council house. There will be public workshops really around ideas that have come up through the showing of the dresses. A guy who's an installation electrician suggested that we could do projections, have fire pits, and have men with boys around fire pits discussing informally. Yeah. Artifacts, artist designed t-shirts and mugs, again, that's publicizing and creating stuff for people to reflect on. Anyone remember The Wash House was a book publication brought together by older women coming together, and the idea is to have a similar illustrated hardback limited edition publication when the red is raised, which will be creative poetry expressions, which I will oversee. And yeah, there's scholars working in this area that have identified to have them come with the University of Bristol and actually draw out the links with the legacy of colonial violence and chattel slavery that's in our midst. Next slide. I think I'm going to wrap up to give you a chance to ask some questions. And one of them, obviously, people make it clear this is men's work. And this is a counsellor guy with a book who's worked a lot extensively with men on violence. Yes, so to have him talk, and I have heard him talk, women. Yeah, so that's one of the speakers we're looking to have in Bristol. I think next slide. Yeah, I think it's just really, I think I've spoken to all that really. Well, guerrilla installations around the city. So the 16 days, we're looking at 3 locations of violence and legacies of colonization and chattel slavery. And the way it can be internalized and be in families. And also, if people not experience it, there will be someone with children, grandchildren at school experiencing violence. Um, yeah. So it's our awareness and how we safeguard and look out for one another. And to have the whole process of raising the projects recorded for posterity. I think I'm going to leave there. I was going to end with a piece, but so people can ask questions.
Lovely.
Okay.
Right.
Questions and comments for the speakers, please.
Well, just totally,
Angela?
totally excellent, and thank you. The Anna Feeney art exhibition, Barbara Walker, the being there, is on till the 25th of May. So, friends, if you haven't been there, do go and see it. And I think the Anna Feeney also has a tapestry of Black Britons. We're very lucky, I think, in Bristol that there's some quite really vital work going on in different places. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, there is, and it is a city in that and making connections and sharing. I have actually put on the slide a couple of books, actually. I don't know if it goes right at the end, and some links which you can give out if people are interested with What Shall We Do About Slavery by, trying to think of a name. Is it Alison O'Connell? She's a professor at the University of Bristol. No, that's next slide. Yeah, Julia O'Connell Davidson. And a novel, The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, and a piece I wrote for, oh, Angela, I see you kind of, it's an extraordinary book. I think we can't hear you, Angela. You'll have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Still muted, Angela.
You're still mute.
Yeah, sorry. Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to say I've got that book. It is totally brilliant.
Yeah,
totally
no,
brilliant. So
yeah.
thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no, too.
It's
kind of what people, if you're a reader, read, and what we do to understand our very troubled world, but yet beautiful. We've got to hold on to the beauty in it.
Amazing.
And the beauty is in extraordinary people that you meet. I'm always meeting extraordinary people, random people that you never see again in interventions. And Bristol's always been a magical place. If you come up with a project, people always want to get engaged in some way to help. There's been crafters who've just put their hand up, I'm going to do something, and just join. And that's the way to do it, and how we can give messages out to stop and think about the violence, wherever it is, and its impact on lives. And it is because there's more and more people joining the dead who are joining, prematurely. So I think it's humbling. It's humbling to be able to coordinate and see the impact on others and how they're moved to respond, to understand, connect and heal.
Hattie, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. Ros, hi. Thank
Hi,
you.
Hattie.
What a wide-ranging talk. You saying about developing a permanent space. Do you know where that will be?
That's at Greenbank Cemetery.
It will.
Yeah. So that's where her final remains are, under a generic Baptist stone. Yes, that's where the seating area will be, a interpretation board, and signposting marker as well, with connections to Nigeria. The distance, 'cause it's sort of like the distance we travel in our minds and hearts to understand that the world that we live in. Yeah, you're kind of working on different levels to engage people. I think we're all journeying, and whether we dip our foot in the water and how we journey and connect, with others whose experiences and lives are different to our own, really.
Dan, can you take down the slide so we can see everybody? Thank you very much. Okay.
Hi there, Rosie.
Hi.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I think I'll have to watch the recording because there was just too much to take in. Yes, I hadn't realised just quite how wide-ranging it was, and yeah, very interesting. And your other book recommendations are proving very interesting as well. And really just wish you all the best with the project. I'm delighted that you're working with the schools, being a sort of educationalist myself, and I do know how much work has to go into that to make it a worthwhile project that really engages the youngsters, but how important that is. And of course also that we're hearing more of them saying, well, we haven't heard the full history. It's very censored or limited, the kind of history that's often taught. And I was probably unusual in that, being educated abroad, I did at least do Commonwealth history, and some of it was covered. I was aware of the transatlantic slave trade and the triangular trade and all that sort of thing, and India. But yeah, there's always more to learn. So thank you very much.
The question I suppose I would be posing is that Europe, some places, parts of Europe, and especially with the group you have in America at the moment, and sadly over here with Nigel Farage and his lot, will impose upon some of the ideas which you are posing forward. What do you think about that type of development at the moment?
Well, that's always there. It's not new throughout history.
No, obviously not, but it's more dominant, I think, now, as in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, for someone kind of working in this area, it's not new. And there's always a backlash. There's always people quashing. And I think it's incumbent on us to, be aware that it's part of the struggle, to kind of see it. I've been fortunate because we've had some extraordinary people in Bristol, including the late Richard Hart, who was part of the struggle for decolonisation in Jamaica. And when I discovered who he was and kind of wanted to learn everything around what that 1938, which is quite an interesting time, the 30s globally. And you can see the patterns time and time again, nothing is new. And I think it's incumbent on us to make links and be part of the struggle for truth, seeking truth, for justice and equality. That's what it is, isn't it? And it's interesting. I don't know if anyone's following what's going on in Burkina Faso at the moment. There's a very young president who took over the country with a coup. He's had about 20 assassination attempts on his life because he wants to install, he's kicked out the French, want to mine their own minerals, want to redistribute in a more equitable way. Yeah. So that's quite interesting as to, because he comes from a military background. Yeah, see how long he's lasted before, he's exterminated. But it does give you hope that people do strive for something better, fairer, and just. And how it's portrayed to us in the West is something else. But it's that sense of, Africans have always had their own agency. And a sense of allyship as well, as to how do we do this thing that's so big and challenging and difficult. And I think, kind of being a writer and artist, that's where I kind of get my peace, my connection. And, when you're bringing something out in the open, it has another life for people to react to and respond. And it can create magic, even if it's only for 5 minutes, just seeing that. It just gives you the energy and fuel to keep going, really. And it's an honour to give voice to all those little people of the world without a voice, past and present, in our midst. It's to see them and to amplify them and honour them and reflect as to why these numbers increasing all the time. And what can I do? Yeah. So it's humbling for me, but, I just see myself as facilitating conversations, workshops, and young people are extraordinary. Yeah, I have a lot of faith and hope. Yeah, as you're kind of getting older, you get a bit tired. But yeah, there's young people doing some extraordinary things in the city and elsewhere. It's also making links, trying to think the guy, he's on the Reparations. Oh, I can't remember. Prela, another group emanating from Stroud, doing some extraordinary stuff. Making the links, seeing the links, and saying less and listening more, and looking for people that kind of need amplifying and to do their stuff. Yeah. I'm privileged to do what I do.
Kate.
I might ask a question this time. As you know, the money is a crucial issue in our meeting. But do you have a list of sort of sponsors, particularly for the Fanny Coker thing? If not now, is there a chance you could let me have it?
What, a list of what?
Well,
Black Southwest Network managing the monies and fundraising on the project's behalf. But yes, I trust and give to the universe. There'll be enough people out there that can see what it is and why it's important and need to happen. Yeah. So we're looking at raising 111,000 at the last count. They did manage to successfully get 1 million or something for something. So I'm hoping that thing might happen. Yeah. So
what was that? 111,000.
Yeah.
What is that to cover?
It's to cover the artists commissioning. It's to cover a workshop. It's a huge thing. What I just said, just imagine it. It's very easy to think very small. And I found myself actually just really shrinking. And then it's suddenly like, fly, Ros. If you had thing, what would this look like? Which is what they're enabling me to do. So it's covering a whole range. There'll be a whole team of people. There'll be 7 of us working on different aspects, but I'll be overseeing the education development, there's marketing, there's coordinating of the red dresses and outreach. I'm trying to think what else there is in that. I'll have to look at the funding application. Yeah. But yes, so hey. Yeah.
Robin.
and bringing in speakers as well. I'd like to bring in the original Akachi Exibu to Bristol.
Ros,
Sorry.
Robin wanted to ask a question.
Sorry, Robin.
No, I wanted to thank you for such an inspiring talk, and I at the beginning. Oh, can I just, as an aside, just as a hint to people, if you want to unmute, it's a fuss finding the microphone down in the left and so on. Particularly if you just want to make a brief comment. If you press the space bar on, it unmutes temporarily while you're pressing it. It's just a useful hint if people want it. But anyway, you at the beginning of your talk, you sort of hinted at the anger that could be amongst young black men because of all of this. And obviously the work in schools might involve young black men and so on, and they might vicariously see the work on violence against women and so on. But I wondered if there was anything we could do to help directly with young black men. The problem is, as a white male, it can be condescending and so on. So I was wondering that there must be a lot of work going on. I hope there is, of a similar nature, perhaps. But whether is it possible to extend this work in that area?
That's good, actually, and very reserved. I kind of, as it evolves and something pops up, really that's clear. I mean, certainly someone has, in another setting that I've been, said, I'm in a men's group and we're doing stuff around black men, anger and stuff. And he's a young guy. He's probably, I'd say, late 20s. So there is that. I did mean said we must link up and have a conversation, because anything I kind of feel or see, I kind of look and map out, and at least, see what they're doing and what, how the land lies, and whether there's scope to actually, have something piloting out of there as well. Yeah, it's a good observation, because that's it, when you're kind of a ball of anger, where does that go to?
I just want to mention, I don't know if it's relevant now, but a friend of mine, black friend from London, has been developing resources for young black men. She's moving to Bristol.
Oh wow, brilliant!
So I can't introduce her to all my relevant friends.
It might be, something to pilot. I mean, as I said, without speaking to this young guy first, but I did say, yes, let's talk, really. Which is nice, because you think it's how you receive and accept it and see, And it is a journey as well, isn't it, to actually... The other thing to have to say about the dresses, we were always quite afraid they might be damaged, taken down, but every single one of them, wherever they've been exhibited, have been respected. Yeah, and stayed up. Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier which I'd been thinking about and thinking, don't do that, which is the men's and boys and fire pits.
Yes. You didn't like that?
Doesn't work at all.
Why did you say that?
It has been tried in number of groups which I've worked with in London and in Birmingham and a couple of other places, and you get the kind of the right on dads with their children, who are have these kind of weird sounding names which come from the very high middle class of Jocelyn and Freddie and Daddy is always there with them to do these things because he really agrees with that type of thing. And no, it's a kind of. Do you remember the book Iron John?
I saw you shaking your head. I hear what you're saying. I see there is a class issues in it. Yeah. But yes, it's not my expertise and it's not what I'll be, but I'm open to hear young men, young black men, as to how they feel it might work or how you engage with other young black men. You know, it's all learning, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. No,
Yeah.
nothing against learning at all.
Yeah, but yes.
It's just that
It
just
wasn't
made
a
me think.
Norwegian young man. You're right. Probably could be, yeah. But
Julia.
we also might be surprised as well.
Yeah. Julia, you wanted a word.
I just wanted to say, Rosie, how much you've opened my eyes over a bit of time, just how important all this is, because it's so easy when you first hear about it to think, oh, well, it's all in the past. We don't really need to worry about that now. Let's look to the future and what he's doing now. But you see, it isn't like that because a lot of people just don't realize what we've done in the past. And you've got to bring it to their attention and get them to understand how important it all is. What I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you. I think there's different ways of looking at it, but certainly the red dress does something, which is very, very powerful. And
that was something I didn't know about. So,
and looking at violence around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you ever so much. I mean, I kind of know a lot of it, but to see it all brought together in that sort of a wonderful way is just really, really special.
Thank you. Because we haven't got all the slides, is there some way that it can continue? I'm just saying because people probably have to go, you know, for people that are not here, because it's also got the links and that on it. Who's going to be doing the editing on the recording?
That would be our friend David.
Oh, hi, David.
Hi, Ros.
Yeah.
I don't do very much. I simply post the recording, but I usually post some notes underneath. If you want to, if you would like to carry on, that too can be fine. That's negotiable, I guess. But I could post slides, a link to the slides.
Okay.
If you were to send me the slides.
Yes, that should do it.
Post a link to a PDF of them underneath.
Yeah, no, that'd be brilliant because it's got the, you know, the books and the links as well. And that's brilliant.
Notes might be better anyway, because then you can kind of click on them, can't you? Whereas if something's on the screen, then you've then got to sort of copy it.
That's true. Well, so I normally put a bit of a summary. I'm lazy. I'm lazy in these matters. I take the transcript and I give it to ChatGPT, and it comes up with a lovely summary of what the meeting was, and I link to that as well. So there'll be a link to the slides, a link to the summary, and you'll be very welcome
to have a look at the summary,
to edit it, to have a look at.
Oh, brilliant! That sounds brilliant. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'll put it up there, but so it's there for anybody as soon as this is posted. But it can always be edited at any time. So that from that moment on, people get a updated version.
Okay, sounds brilliant. We've got an email for you, David. I think you have.
Yeah, well, Patsy normally has these things. My email is if Patsy has your and Dan's email,
or send it to Patsy then.
Then I will send out notice to everybody here who I know, who I've got the email of. I'm not sure I've got yours, Robin. So I'll put my email in the chat right now.
Okay, brilliant.
And I will send out. We haven't really. We've only done about 100 of these so far, and we're not really up to speed properly.
Wow.
Notifying people of what we've done and what we're about to do. We don't have a good mailing list at the moment either, but we hope to upgrade on all of that. And I do try, and once I've got the video up, I do try, I look through and see whose emails I've got and send out a notice to everyone where the talk is for them to look at and tell other people about.
We have actually updated the mailing list quite recently, so but if anyone doesn't get back a report of this on their email, do get back to me and I'll make sure that you do.
There you go, lovely.
You put it in the chat.
Right, dear friends. I think we have come to a level where people would start to need to go, these type of things. So, thank you very much for the talk today. It has been inspiring.
Well, thank you for listening.
Right. The next week, or the next 2 weeks before we go on our summer break, we have next week introducing Angela Orset.
Yeah.
Angela and Patsy. Or Patsy will be chatting to Angela.
Yeah, you might have to shut me up. I'm this 86-year-old, who's got a lot of living she's done, but I will be talking about just 2 items. But my daughter, I had no internet because the co-op cyber attack meant I had no internet. So my daughter, who lives in Swansea, came over and did the magic. So I've now got internet, but that means she won't be coming next week. So I will not be able to do anything other than talk. And you need to shut me up when you've heard enough. That's all I'll say.
Oh, dear. And
Angela,
yeah.
You say you won't be able to do anything but talk, but I bet you've got some artifacts to show us. And the of poetry and writing.
No, I haven't actually, because I've had real problems. I write family histories. I finished writing a family history of my mum's side of the family, and what I do, I had it printed in last year. I dump everything in plastic boxes to sort out. Now my granddaughters, who are 26 and 27, have said, "But Grandma, we want to know about you." So now I'm starting it, but I've got a few notes, but they are rough. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. I talk about 2 things, and they're things that happened because I was born 6 months before World War II started. So I had the horror of World War II growing up in Kent. There were a couple of things I felt I needed to talk about, but I am serious about shutting me up if I go on too long. Because that's what my granddaughter said. "Oh, Grandma, we've heard all that a few times."
It's children are like that, I'm afraid. And the last one before we go on a break is from me, and it is called Henry Cartier-Bresson and his colleagues.
And what is it going to talk about?
It's photo reportage, Marion, and it's one of my little hobbies that I like to collect photographs which virtually tell a story, and I shall be showing different people's photographs, and I shall basically hold the book up to the screen because I'm a technophobe in a lot of places. But I think you might be interested, some people might be interested in the development of this photographic idea of people and places and when someone points a camera at it and there's someone, and that instant memory. Because I tell you, if you have lots of photographs and you sit down with your friends and you say, look at that, look at that, and people will go, oh yeah, that's when you did that, wasn't it? You know, and she nearly fell off there, and we had and this can go on for a whole evening, friends. It is a fun
Ray.
thing to do.
I need to go.
So do I, sorry.
As people are going, I would say, good afternoon, friends. And please, as I say to every time, tell your friends that this is happening.
Yes, and thank you, Dan. And
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Bye.